Even though you hurt me every single year, God only knows how much I love talking about Carolina football.
You don't want none! You don't want none!
What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to talk about the annual, way too early 2024 North Carolina Tar Heels football season prediction. We're just a little over 3 months away from that August 29th opener at Minnesota. But I thought that this would be as great a time as any to talk about my expectations with this 2024 Tar Heel team and that 2024 Carolina football schedule. But first, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. July will officially be year number 2 of the Tar Heel Huddle as we head into football and eventually basketball season. Yes, we have the Inside Carolinas and the Tar Heel Illustrateds, and they do a phenomenal job of giving us a lot of insider information. But if you're interested in just having a good time and unfiltered opinions about the state of the program, this might be the channel for you. I don't have to go and talk to Mac Brown. I don't have to do any of that stuff. It's just my unfiltered, unfettered opinions about what's going on as a Tar Heel fan. So like I said, man, like, share, and subscribe. Now, what we're going to do in this episode is I'm going to go game by game and discuss whether I think the Heels will win or lose that game, and then we'll revisit how accurate I was at the end of the year. For instance, last year I picked the Heels to finish the regular season 11-1 and win the ACC in 2023. And for a minute, I was looking like a stinking genius. Carolina started out 6-0 when most major outlets, including a lot of these Carolina sites, were picking the Heels to start 2-4, 3-3, maybe 5-1 if everything just like completely fell Carolina's way. But they were white, stinking hot to start the season. And who could have seen after that 6-0 start, that 2-5 stretch that would come? Just unbelievable losses to Virginia, Georgia Tech, at Clemson, which was the one team that I kind of said, hey, man, that's going to be a really tough one down in Death Valley. And then you lose to a depleted state team for the third year in a row. And then you follow that up by having an abysmal bowl game against West Virginia and Charlotte, which you could tell that the fans had just had enough because that place was 80% West Virginia fans. Hell, it took all of Drake May's heroics to escape the Dukies and their third-string freshman quarterback in double OT. So Carolina goes from 6-0, top 10. I'm looking like a stinking genius. And they finished the season 8-5, and another disappointing season based off of the expectations that we had. But can the Heels finally finish this year? Let's take a stinking look. So on my right, you will see the 2024 North Carolina Tar Heels football schedule, and you'll see that the Heels start their campaign out in Big Ten country with an away game in Minneapolis as the Heels take on the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. Carolina played the Gophers for the first time last year, and they absolutely walloped them 31-13 in what was arguably Carolina's best defensive effort of the season, behind possibly the South Carolina game. The Gophers are a disciplined team with Coach Fleck at the helm, despite going 6-7 last year. But now gone is the Greek rifle, and in comes Max Brosmer, a grad transfer from New Hampshire who was a finalist for the Walter Payton Award last year. Now, despite the Heels winning fairly convincingly last year in Chapel Hill, I do think that this is going to be a very close football game. Whoever is under center for the Heels to start 2024, whether it be Max Johnson or it be Connor Harrell, it's going to be a process to get them acclimated to that role. But then there's still the All-American running back, back there with Omarion Hampton. You got a stacked tight end room, talented young wide receiver core, and an aggressive, finally, what's supposed to be an aggressive defense. I'm going to give the Heels the nod here in a close one and walk out with a W. The Heels still have the more talented roster from top to bottom. It might not be a pretty game, but the Heels get it done in week 1. And then we start a stretch of less than competition, if you will, starting with the Charlotte 49ers in Chapel Hill. Carolina's never played the 49ers in football, but this one is in Chapel Hill, and there is absolutely no reason that the Heels drop the ball here. We're not going to spend too much time on this game. Give me the Heels to move to 2-0. Then we have the vaunted North Carolina Central Eagles out of Durham. And once again, we're not going to waste much time with this one. W for the Heels, moving to 3-0. Real barn burners to start off this season, bro. If we drop one of those two games, there are going to be some deep-seated issues that we're going to have to talk about midseason. Then we have a sneaky game, James Madison. The James Madison Dukes out of Virginia on September 21st. Now, Carolina is 3-0 against JMU all time, and they last defeated them 37-14 in 2007. But the Dukes had a really good season last year, finishing at 11-2, despite losing to Air Force in their bowl game. They beat Virginia by 1, who actually beat the Hills down in Chapel Hill. But then they lost to App State by 3 in overtime, who Carolina also beat in double overtime themselves in the second week. So I think this is going to be a closer game than many of us would like, but the Heels will be victorious in Chapel Hill, giving them a perfect 4-0 start to the season. And it's funny because they'll probably be 4-0 and they'll still be unranked because of the competition that they've faced. And then we jump into ACC play by traveling all the way to Durham to take on the Dukies for the Victory Bell and Wallace Wade Stadium. Here we are with the annual Carolina should win this game with ease. But this one always seems to be closer than it should be. Carolina won last year on the late game heroics of Drake May, like we already talked about in double OT, 47-45. And they lead the all-time series 64-40 and 4 ties. The Dukies actually claim the series as 63-40 with 4 ties. The dispute is over the 1889 game where both teams stayed home, and they refused to play because they both believed they were the home team. Fun fact for the day. I was actually at that Carolina Duke game, had a great time. Shout out to Preston. And, it was one of the best games / most disappointing games that I've ever been to because Duke, the talent level compared to Carolina's talent level, third string quarterback, we have Drake May. We went in double overtime, man. I'm just frustrated with those kind of games being close, even though Carolina got the W. Anyway, in comes Manny Diaz as the Devils football coach, which I still think is an extremely strange fit. Waters is transferred to NC State, which once again makes me stink and think, what world are we living in? Waters, the running back. But the Devils will probably go with former Texas quarterback Malik Murphy as their starting quarterback. The Devils bring back a really good back with Jaquez Moore, and they got Jordan Moore coming back as well. But the Heels are just too talented. This is a sneaky football game, guys, but I still think Carolina gets it done. This one has us on the edge of our seats, but the Heels get another really close W. Heels move to 5-0 to start the season. Then Carolina hosts the Pitt Panthers, who they beat last year 41-24 at Pitt. Remember, Drake May had that patented left-handed touchdown throw out there in Pittsburgh. Carolina leads the all-time series 12-5, but Pitt does return back Rodney Hammond, and they got Kanata Mumpfield back outside a wide receiver once again. So the question is can redshirt junior Nate Yarnell give the Panthers some quality quarterback play? Probably the only quarterback, since, there hasn't been really any quarterback play since Kenny Pickett went to the NFL. Pat Narduzzi is famously known as a defensive guru, and the Pitt Panthers pride themselves on being a physical defense, but I still believe Pitt is going to be outmatched in Chapel Hill, and Carolina actually gets another W. Same start as last year, 6-0 to start the season. And then there's Georgia Tech in Chapel Hill. Georgia Tech went 7-6 last year, and they beat UNC 46-42 in kind of a shootout down in Atlanta, which has been an absolute house of horrors for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Georgia Tech also leads the all-time series 33-22 with 3 ties. One of those ties was Georgia Tech's national championship in, I think, 1990. That one little blemish was a tie to North Carolina, so you're welcome, Georgia Tech. Now the Yellow Jackets finished 2023 strong by playing Georgia very tough and then beating UCF 30-17 in their bowl game. Listen, guys, Carolina needs this game very bad, okay? Georgia Tech has been an absolute thorn in our side. Tech is, just year after year, it seems like when Carolina has the more talented roster and Carolina should get the job done, somehow Georgia Tech escapes with a W. Make no mistake, Haynes King is really good. I gave that kid a lot of stinking crap last year. He is a good quarterback. Eric Singleton Jr. is a baller. Jamal Haynes is a stick of dynamite every time he touches the football. And depending on whether or not Carolina can plug the major holes that the defense experienced in the second half of 2023, with obviously Georgia Tech's old head coach, Jeff Collins, coming over to be the guy that's supposed to make this defense better, we're going to have to stinking, plug those holes and see if Carolina will be able to match Georgia Tech's offensive firepower. I think they're going to have a really good offense, man. But Carolina's going to have to show me. I hate to do this. I really do, man. But my gut 3 months out is telling me that this is once again the first annual Carolina letdown game. Once again, giving the Yellow Jackets all the ammo they could possibly stinking want to poke fun at Carolina's inability to beat Georgia Tech. Make no mistake, man, Carolina can win this stinking football game, but once again, Mac and the boys are going to have to show me. Heels move to 6-1 going into the bye week, and we have to listen to 2 weeks worth of grumbling before getting the opportunity to right the ship. And that starts with the trip to Charlottesville, a.k.a. Whoville, to take on the Cavaliers of Virginia in the South's oldest rivalry. Carolina leads the series 66-58 with 4 ties. Now, Virginia last year was the beginning of the end for the Carolina season, it seems like. Hills were in the top 10, home game, 6-0, and it just so happened to be on a fall break on campus. The student section was non-existent. Fans were non-existent. Hell, Carolina played like they were non-existent. It was like watching the Monstars take all the best NBA guys' talent in Space Jam. I was truly in awe of the product that the Heels put on the field against Virginia after the Heels beat the Canes. That doesn't happen this year, though. Carolina gets a little bit of revenge. They go up to Charlottesville, and they secure the win against the Hoos rather convincingly, moving them to 7-1 on this season. And then there's the one that we all want to circle on the stinking calendar. The granddaddy of them all, what is sure to be the ACC favorites. Maybe Clemson, but it's probably Florida State. Florida State in Tallahassee. The Noles. Florida State owns a 17-3-1 record against the Heels and are currently on a 2-game winning streak. Norvell seems to really have things cooking over there. Florida State did go 13-0 in the regular season, and they won the ACC championship game with its third-string quarterback, obviously after Jordan Travis got hurt. And yes, they got snubbed from the playoff. And yes, they got embarrassed by Georgia 63-3 in the bowl game. But keep in mind, the Noles had a ton of guys opt out of the game. Now, Florida State has DJU coming over from Oregon State. And even though I haven't been his biggest advocate, DJU, a serviceable quarterback, if you will, and all that talent that Florida State has on their roster with a rocking crowd down in Tallahassee, this one is going to be stinking tough, man. Carolina's beaten Florida State 2 out of the last 3 in tally. but I really do doubt that happens here, man. Carolina keeps it close for a half, and they drop another one, putting the Hills at 7-2, 3-2 on the season, moving into their second bye week on the week of November 9th. Then the Hills will take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in Chapel Hill on November 16th, which just so happens to be your boy's birthday. And I'm going to be there. So, hey, 6 months out, 6 months in advance. If you guys want to come hang out, man, go ahead and get your tickets for the Wake Forest game because I will stink and be there, man. So I'm super excited for this one. Dave Clawson is one of the best in the conference at getting the most out of the talent on his roster. And obviously, if you're going to be successful at a place like Wake Forest, you're going to have to get your 3-star guys and your 2-star guys to play like 4-star guys and 5-star guys. Carolina's actually had the opposite issue where it seems like most of their higher rated guys, they're playing like, 3 stars and 2 stars. But even Clawson struggled last year getting much out of his team as the Deacs went 4-8, 1-7 in the ACC. Now, Carolina doesn't lose this one though, okay? Carolina's just too talented as compared to the Demon Deacons, if you will, and the Heels moved to 8-2, 4-2 on the season. Carolina's 4-2 all-time versus their next opponent, the Boston College Golden Eagles. And this one is stinking really tricky, man. One of the first things I saw when the schedule came out, Boston College in Chestnut Hill, late November, bro. So you know it's going to be stinking cold. Average lows are in the mid to upper 30s. So the last thing that we would want is a stinking night game. If I could ever get a noon game, this is the game that I want to play at noon, right? So like I said, Carolina's 4-2 all-time versus BC, and the last time that these two played was actually up in Chestnut Hill. It was a weird 26-22 Carolina win back in 2020. Carolina had that weird 2-point attempt return for a touchdown to kind of seal a really awkward football game. Now, the Eagles were 7-6 last year, 3-5 in the ACC, and they have that emerging star quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, under center, who is an absolute playmaker. This is going to be a really interesting game, and I think Carolina is going to get caught napping in the first half, and then they kind of bring it on late to win a really close one against Boston College, which moves Carolina to 9-2, 5-2 on the season. And then there's the team from stinking Raleigh. 3 straight years of being the better team and getting beaten. 3 straight years of being out-hustled by the boys in Raleigh. Out-coached by the boys in Raleigh. Outplayed by the boys in Raleigh. 3 straight years of absolute pain and misery from any true Tar Heel football fan. Dave Doeren is like some supervillain that I keep waiting for the hero, supposed to be Mac Brown, to put him in his place. Now, State has things rolling over there right now, bro. There are a lot of people that think that this could be the year that State actually competes for an ACC championship. They finished 9-4 last year, and despite losing to K-State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, in steps Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, who is kind of a gamer, man. He doesn't possess a very big arm, but the dude is a football player. Jordan Waters comes over from Duke, which is a good serviceable running back to head that running back room. And who can forget Kevin Concepcion and the show he put on last year against Carolina out in Raleigh. But instead of this time of being matched up against a running back turned nickel, he's going to have Elijah Huzzy or Marcus Allen in front of him. Jakeem Harris, the former NC State Wolfpack, and Stick Lane, they may very well be the safeties. And I think by this time, Carolina is much improved on the defensive end. And it's in Chapel Hill. If the Heels come in 9-2 and State is also good, which they should be, this game could have major ACC championship game implications. Mac Brown has to win this football game to end the streak, man. 4 in a row against NC State when you are arguably the best coach that Carolina has ever had is unacceptable. This is a must-win football game. Carolina has to win this game to get to that all-important 10-win season. And Carolina remembers the abysmal performance they put on last year in Raleigh. And they win a war, just like it should be between these two schools every year. Carolina moves to 10-2, 6-2, and may, just may, sneak into the ACC championship game. Who knows what that's actually going to take, man. Florida State's going to be good. Miami's going to be good. Some are saying Virginia Tech is going to be good. Carolina comes in at 10-2, 6-2 in the ACC. That may very well be enough to get them in the ACC championship game. So I think the teams right now that everybody is talking about are those teams. Nobody's really talking about the Heels, but I think that the Heels are sneaky good, man, especially with the schedule that's put in front of them. I think it's a favorable schedule, right? So we'll see what happens, man. I mean, you know, when football season comes, we'll see if Carolina can actually play to its potential as opposed to consistently letting us down, especially in the latter half of the season. So let me know what you think about my way too early season prediction. Remember, this is obviously subject to change as the season gets closer and we take a deeper dive into what these opponents are bringing to the table. But I really do want to hear what you guys are thinking heading in to the 2024 campaign. Listen, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I really think that Carolina's floor in this one is 8-4, and I think the ceiling is legitimately 11-1. I'm picking them 10-2. That may slide to the left or right as the season draws near, but that's what I got 3 months out, man. So remember, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think, Tar Heel Nation, down in the comments section, and we'll catch you on the next one, baby.